Hi, friends, and welcome to the Relational Skills in Real Life podcast. This is Christy Harang. I'm the Director of Operations for Thrive Today, and I'm stepping in temporarily for Chris Coursey as we do a series of interviews, getting to know our Thrive Today team and our Thrive Today trainers a little bit better. So our trainers are the ones who lead the tracks for our Thrive Premier training events. And today we have a really special treat because one of our track one trainers, Pam Bryan, is here to talk with us. So we'll be interviewing Pam, talking a little bit about how relational skills are making an impact in her life. So Pam, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Christy. It's so great to be with you.
So, we are basically just in this series going to talk a little bit about specific relational skills that are making an impact for our different team members and our trainers. But Pam, I wanted to have you start off by sharing, how did you get to know about Thrive Today? How were you introduced to this ministry?
It was a nice thread. We had a church, an uptown inner city church in a warehouse. And there was a lot going on that we had never encountered before, some spiritual warfare issues. And we started pulling threads to find out who could help us. So we latched onto a ministry that was in spiritual warfare training. And we kept hearing the name Dr. Jim Wilder over and over again in the message that we were listening to. And Dana thought, my husband thought, I really need to find out about this Jim Wilder. So as we dived in and we found out about Thrive Premier Training. We reached out to Chris Coursey, and that was in 2012 or before 2012. We eventually went to the training in 2012, and just our eyes were open, thinking we had gone to help the folks in our church and realized, oh, we were the ones that needed this. And we were so happy to be there for the week, and we learned so much. It was an amazing week. And then we went back each of the next 2 years as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And now you guys are track one trainers. Well, we talked a little bit about some different skills that have really impacted Pam's life. And one of the skills that we decided to talk about today, or the skill we decided to talk about today, is skill 6, identifying heart values. Now, if you want to learn more about this skill, Chris did an episode on the podcast, episode 40, and you can hear him talk more about this skill. But I'm going to give a brief definition in case you're new to it. So essentially, if you think about it, God is multifaceted in his character and his nature and his heart and all these qualities that make him who he is. And each one of us get to carry his heart and his values in a unique way. We can't all express God fully, but each one of us carries a special piece of who he is. And so this skill enables us to identify, how did God uniquely wire my heart? What are the values and the character traits that are unique to me and make me who I am? And with that, we also can see that when things in life cause us pain, they make us mad or really sad or frustrated, those can be clues or signals to how God uniquely wired our hearts. So, for example, if I really carry the value of mercy in a unique way, mercy is going to matter to me. It will matter more to me than the average person. And it'll be important for me to be able to feel like I can receive mercy, that I can give mercy, that mercy is valued in different situations. And if mercy is not being valued, someone's not showing mercy, I'm not receiving mercy, or mercy is being blocked, I'm going to feel sad, frustrated, angry. I'm going to feel pain because of it. So, with that, we're just going to talk a little bit more about how this skill has impacted Pam's life. So, Pam, all that to say, you have a really unique heart characteristic that you've discovered through your time with Thrive. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first I'll say when we first got married, I would say to Dana, I just want to talk about important things. And he
Mm.
would, okay, what does that mean? And I said, I have no idea. I just know that I want to talk about important things. I didn't want to just say, nice things or have maybe a boring conversation. I wanted it to be substantive and with important words that impacted others. And we were in, I think, our second year of Thrive, I think, and our homework assignment was find out the heart Jesus gave you. So that was tricky. Dana's was easy because in the example that they gave, it said, for instance, if someone has loyal love, they just want to uh, be with the person, they want to keep meeting with them. They have a shepherd's heart. It's loyal, Hesed love. And we go, well, that was easy. That's you. There is no doubt about that. With me, it took me literally 6 months to figure it out because in those days we didn't have the lists of prompts to give us ideas about what we might consider about ourselves, positive and negative side of the gift. So finally, after 6 months of going to Starbucks every Friday on our date day, we came up with the idea that, well, I loved writing, communicating. I loved saying words. And then I came up with, well, I like it when they're timely and they have to be authentic. So it became communicating authentic, timely words. Well, why do I like to do that? Not just for anything, but so that the people that I'm with can soar. They can soar with Jesus and be impacted in some way. So it was huge, a huge relief for both of us because understanding each other like that meant that oh, now I understand why you meet with this person and you've been meeting with them on the same day for 20 years. I never thought that was necessary because my timely words just are brief. They come and go, they impact, and then it's over. His heart, that loyal heart, just keeps him there, keeps him with the person. So we understood each other better. We appreciated each other and ourselves. It was a big day when we discovered those heart values.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Now, just if people, for people who might be wondering about the list, just to clarify, so we spent a session on this in track one at the Thrive Premier training. And so we have kind of a chart with different examples of heart characteristics that people can look through to kind of figure out which one really resonates with me as like a core heart characteristic for me. And so we lead people through this discovery process of being able to figure that out and experiment with it a little bit. So that's what Pam's referring to. But um, Pam, can you give us an example? I'm going to ask for two examples. So maybe one example where you have been able to really show up with how God wired you through this hard characteristic of using timely, authentic words, and a time where you felt pain because that wasn't something that you could do, or there was somehow that was being stunted.
Yes, and part of saying authentic words is asking questions. I love to ask questions and I love to get to know people well enough, watching their body language, watching the choice of words that they use, listening to what they say about how they live their life and so on. I remember a time when we were in Canada as Dana was a pastor and we had invited over a couple who had come to Canada to minister at our church musically. And as we gathered and just were sitting together and I listened to what they were saying, I realized, I wonder if they have a lot of close friendships. Their ministry is constant, their family is demanding. And so I just asked the question, um, what do you do for fun? Or who are your people that you just hang with? And they looked at each other and they thought, and they said, actually, that's a really good question. And it caused them to start thinking about how they spent their time and what they needed and what their family needed. It was just a small thing, but it was kind of a big thing in the moment for them to think about that. So that's
So,
one instance where I love, love, love asking questions, not for the answer that they're going to give me, but for the way that it breaks open more consideration and more thinking on their part.
mhm, that's
So
beautiful.
That's a simple illustration. Then you ask for a more painful time. I will just generically tell this story that we were in a situation where we were called into an important meeting with someone who was in charge, and we weren't sure how the meeting was going to go or what was going to be asked of us. But a friend of ours said to me specifically, "Don't say anything."
Mm.
Even now, as I talk about that, remember that it touches my heart deeply to have been bridled like that, to be shut down, because I wouldn't have said anything inappropriate, but it was a very important meeting, and he was afraid that things would go south, or that it would something that it would go really badly, and so he was trying to protect us. I understand. So we got into the meeting. I listened. I remembered what he said. I didn't say anything, but there were a couple of questions I would have loved to have asked, and a couple of statements that actually would have been encouraging. But being the dutiful, submissive wife that I was, and submissive to this friend of ours, I just kept it. But I have always had a measure of grieving over not being able to show up as who I was. So I had no idea that there was that much impact still from that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Pam. I think it just goes to show though how much when God's put specific characteristics in us that again they convey him to the world, but they make us who we are. When we get to live out of those, it breathes life. So when you were able to share a question with this couple that was life-giving because I'm able to see them, I'm able to show up authentically, give them space to be authentic, and share a word or a question in the moment that's just right for the time. Then there's like, I'm living, I'm being who God created me to be, I'm showing up, being Jesus's hands and feet. And then when you're in another situation where it's like that's being stifled, then it's like, I can't show up and be me here. I'm being shut down from being the true, authentic person that God has created me to be and carrying God's heart. Like God called you, Pam, in that situation to carry his heart in a unique way. And it's like you weren't allowed to. That was being shut down. So that caused a huge amount of pain for you.
Yep.
Thank you, Pam, so much for being with me and sharing with us. And I just want to encourage people who are listening. Again, if you want to know more about this skill of identifying heart values, there's a few ways that you can do that. Again, podcast episode 40 talks more about this. Chris goes a little bit more in depth into the skill, so you can listen to that. Also, the book Transforming Fellowship has a whole chapter devoted to this topic. And we also, as I mentioned, we spend part of track one training going through this in a more detailed way and giving you the opportunity to sift through and try to identify how God uniquely wired you and how your pain helps demonstrate how God wired your unique heart. And so, if you want to dive into training, you want to develop relational skills, you want to pass these skills on to other people, Thrive Premier Training is an excellent way to do that. So we'll put links for all of those options in the description of this video. So thank you, Pam, for being with us.
Great to be with you, Christy. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody else, for listening to this episode of Relational Skills in Real Life. We look forward to seeing you next time.